Good afternoon. I welcome you all on another session of India-Ireland Friendship Lecture Series. Our today's lecture is related to education, which is very important for development of an individual, as it gives us ability to shape up our ideas, giving right directions to our thoughts and actions, enabling us to contribute towards making a society worth living and for its progression. Today, I feel privileged to welcome Professor Gina Quin, the President of National College of Ireland, that is a not-for-profit college in Dublin's International Financial Services Centre and Silicon Docks. The NCI provides graduate and most graduate programs in business, computing, psychology, education, and business education. NCI's mission to change lives through education is central to the work of this institution. Previously, Professor Gina worked as Chief Executive of Dublin Chamber, representing businesses in the Greater Dublin region, and as CEO of Ganson Enterprises, the commercial division of the Rehab Group. A psychologist by training, Professor Gina started her career with Lansdowne Market Research as a qualitative researcher and worked with the Irish Export Board supporting exporting companies. Professor Gina is a board member of the governing body of NCI, a board member of Irish Hospice Foundation, a chartered director, and a recipient of the Alumni of the Year Award for UCD Michael Smurfit Business School. Before I invite Professor Gina to share her thought on the topic, Education, a shared value of Ireland and India, I would request His Excellency, the Ambassador of India, to give his introductory remarks to the lecture.
Namaskar, very warm greetings from our embassy in Dublin to all friends in India and Ireland who are joining this program virtually. And also special welcome to friends who are visiting our embassy. We are really delighted and privileged to welcome Professor Gina, and I admire the mission that she is engaged in. Coming from a country which has a very ancient civilization and long-standing tradition of learning. In fact, if I'm asked to define kind of a defining feature of Indian civilization, then one aspect comes to prominence is that as a society we attach much higher importance and respect for knowledge compared to any other physical power or wealth or material well-being and possessions. Our Vedas, which are like foundational value for building the architecture of India's philosophical and civilizational glorious construct. The Veda literally means to know, and the quest for knowledge is considered the most important aspect of the pursuit. And also, India has traditionally attracted people who seekers of knowledge from all over the world. The Greeks, the Chinese, from many other parts of the world, people came for learning, and our universities, Nalanda and Takshila, they were like world renowned. And Nalanda, I have visited that, hosted several centuries ago, about 10,000 students, fully sponsored by the society. That was the concept of Gurukul, was that 10,000 students will be accommodated and will be taken care of. After independence, we like the whole system became we lost like because of many things, colonial rule and systematic destruction of our means of learning. Our libraries were burnt, like in Nalanda, which had one of the most glorious libraries. So I saw myself like that library burned for 6 months. So much of wealth was there, and that happened repeatedly, systematically, and around mid-19th century, Macaulay, he introduced a new education policy, and that education policy was not to nurture knowledge and build the Indian society, but to create middlemen who would be useful to the British in their colonial agenda. And also it started with just 4 universities. The whole idea was not to create education for masses, but for create institutions which will produce useful interlocutors for administering India. Now things are changing, and after when India became independent, we had literacy rate of just around 18%. Female literacy was just 9%, and university enrollment was barely 1%. Now we have more than 30% university enrollment, and we are producing 41 million university graduates every year. More than 1,000 universities. Similarly, the college and school education is more or less universal now, and also number of colleges has gone up from around 40,000 to more than 80,000 in the past 7 years. There's very massive thrust on education. Education is really the most important aspect of our vision, because India is a young demography. At a time when South Korea, Japan, China, Russia, whole of Europe, whole of North America is facing issue of aging problem, growing dependency ratio, and shrinking labor force, India will have growing workforce for the next 50 years. And it is expected that by 2030 or so, India will account for 1/4 of the entire world's skilled manpower pool. And 1/4 of the graduates produced worldwide. So the human, not only the export of material goods or commodities, but export of human talent will be the defining feature of India's, if I look at the trajectory in the years to come, decades to come, the role of India in supplying professional manpower would be very, very problematic. We already see the role that Indian CEOs are playing, Indian origin CEOs are playing in the US or UK or European countries. We are contributing significantly. In Ireland also we have more than 50,000 or so Indian professionals. Most of them are masters and PhD. They are contributing very significantly in tech sector and healthcare sector. We see India's ability to leverage its unique assets depends on how do we empower the people, particularly the youth. We have about 50% of population below 25 years, and around 70% of population below 35 years. So skilling is very, very important. And that is why I see, and the business of skilling is a mega opportunity. That is why I'm looking at Ireland and Irish universities very closely, and I'm engaging them quite vigorously, because I see tremendous opportunity for India and Ireland to develop partnership for mutual benefit. And we are getting a growing number of Indian students to Ireland. India is probably the first largest source of international students in Irish universities, probably after US. But I see there is a greater opportunity for Irish universities and institutions and educationists to go to India and establish a foothold, because the number is so big that it cannot be handled by the facilities in Ireland. So that would be the future for Irish education system to grow and create a win-win partnership. I'm particularly delighted to welcome Professor Gina for this lecture series. My wish is that her inspiring talk will catalyze conversations in India and also connectivities between India and Ireland, so that we learn from each other and we benefit, we create opportunities for people in Ireland and people in India. Education has been a very key area for Irish influence in India. In fact, I am also a product of a university which owes its establishment to an Irish lady in Edison. My wife also, and the Irish education institutions, Irish teachers are respected worldwide also, they are respected in India. So this is a good area for our people to focus. And I'm really delighted that you have kindly accepted our invitation to share your thoughts, and we look forward to working together closely. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Mishra. I am humbled and honoured to be here, and humbled by your knowledge and the information you've already given us about the amazing focus on education within India, the history of that educational focus. And I hope that I can add in some small way to that story in words that I'm delighted to be sharing with you all here today. Education, a shared value of Ireland and India. Now that is a rather grandiose title. When we stand here in the small country of Ireland and consider the amazing country that is India, because I am so aware that both in territorial and population terms, India and Ireland are two very, very different pictures. But I do, with some confidence, put the two flags here on the screen. And I do that purposefully because one of the things that strikes me about Ireland and India is that we have an enormous shared history, particularly in the past 100 years. Although, as the ambassador rightly said, many, many Irish educators and missionaries have spent time over many, many centuries in India. And we are privileged that you remember some of them in your own education and that of your dear wife. When I talk about our shared experience, I do think about our shared experience as nations of colonialism and our shared history of governance by the British and the impact that that history has had on both of our societies. Because there is no doubt that many, many British systems and structures are embedded within our societies, and particularly in education. But in contrast to that, we also share an amazing history of struggle for independence. And we have shared that enormous challenge that comes from being a young nation in the 20th and 21st centuries, trying to position ourselves in a very fast-changing global world. I was fascinated to learn that the revolutionaries in Ireland and in India communicated with each other. They shared information. Your home rule requests mirrored the home rule requests that Ireland was asking for. And our Irish constitution was actually a reference point for the Indian constitution. And as a small nation, to have that tremendous honour and compliment that a nation as significant as India could look to us for some help is absolutely a tremendous honour. So perhaps it is no coincidence that our flags share the same colours and that our societies celebrate diversity while centering on unity and truth. And I put on this slide some of the images, and I see them around the room here, of the 75th anniversary of India's independence, which was celebrated last year, 2022, in the same year as we celebrated the 100th anniversary of the establishment of the Irish Free State. In fact, it was just 1 year after India's independence that the Irish Free State became the Republic of Ireland that we now know today. So the birth of our two nations happened within the same global environment. And now, by happy coincidence, the celebration of that independence and our remembrance of those times is mirrored in both our countries, which I think is quite significant. And as we have emerged as modern and independent countries, we have many, many similarities. Not least the similarities come from the impact that many of our citizens in Ireland and your citizens in India have had across the globe. One of the symbols of success of a nation has to be, in contemporary terms, the global recognition of our artists, our musicians, our sports people, our writers. And this stage of success in sports and culture and arts is common to both Ireland and India. And you will see in these pictures many of the iconic individuals who are out there both historically and contemporarily in the global influencing world. Now, I do have to fess up here and say that while Ireland did have a tremendous success in nominations at the Oscars recently in Hollywood, that success is dwarfed by the Bollywood industry, which is so phenomenal and successful and well known. So I put down some of the figures there, 15,000 to 2,000 movies per year. It is quite phenomenal. So well done, India. But let me come back to the theme of education and learning. The factors that I am speaking about show the very positive influence that both our nations have had in the wider world. But much of that success is born from the focus that we have as nations on education as a really important core value in our societies. What happens to the people who go through education? They go out into their world and our wider world. They do that to better themselves, for the success of their families, for the success of their communities, for the success of their nation, and for the betterment of our planet, because that is something that is now very close to all our hearts, how we mind this planet for ourselves and for future generations. Ireland and India, as the ambassador said so eloquently, both hold education in the highest esteem. From the very establishment of our constitutions to our continued expansion and evolution of education today. In both of our countries, education is not just a right of every citizen, but it is seen to inform democracy, underpin law, encourage civic participation, and provide a route to social mobility and prosperity for the individual and society. And for those amazing businesses that I have seen coming out of India, and the smaller number, but no less amazing businesses that come out of Ireland, remember, there's not just founders with a vision. There is also a highly skilled and highly educated workforce. Employees with ambition and skills, thanks to education and the commitment to lifelong learning. So in that context, I would like to tell you a little bit about National College of Ireland and how our values connect to those very values that the ambassador mentioned for education in India. So, as was so rightly said in the introduction, our mission in National College of Ireland is to change lives through education. That is a simple mission, but a very profound mission. We strive to provide an inspiring education that is innovative, responsive, and enterprise focused. That enterprise piece is very, very important. And we do that through celebrating the values of inclusivity, community, integrity, dynamism, being learner-centred, and focusing on excellence. NCI is the only higher education institution in Ireland that was founded by the Jesuit order. We retain much of the social justice value of the Jesuits. They no longer own National College of Ireland, but are still involved in our governing body. But when I looked at it, I noted that India has more than 52 universities and 17 institutes of business administration that were founded by the Jesuits, as well as many, many hundreds of high schools. So it is so interesting to know that that connection stands between National College of Ireland and many higher education institutions in India. Our origins date back to 1951, when we were established as the Workers' College. So the Jesuits set us up to set the college up to educate union representatives. The whole area of unions and worker representation was very new in Ireland. In the 1950s, you could leave school at the age of 14 in Ireland. That is no longer the case. But many of those workers in companies had not even completed secondary, never mind tertiary education. They had no formal education, and the Workers' College stepped in to help give them that education while they worked. This was a very, very early form of lifelong learning before I think we had even become familiar with the phrase. It was very successful, and so successful that employers took note and were soon knocking on the Workers' College doors to ask, could they have some education? Could they have education in management? And the college then changed its name to the National College of Industrial Relations. And our origins are within enterprise, within the dialogue between employers and employees. And we still hold the premier qualifications in human resources, which is now, I suppose, the term for industrial relations. It is the bigger part of what we understand as industrial relations. It was within those years, in the latter part of the 20th century, that NCI started to branch out into other areas. And we had one of the earliest schools of computing in Ireland, and now remain the largest school of computing in Ireland, and added many other business qualifications to our portfolio. By then we had outgrown the Jesuit premises in Ranelagh, not too far from where we stand here today in Dublin, and the college moved to a custom-built campus in the middle of the then nascent international financial services sector in the Dublin's north inner city. At that stage, the Jesuits stepped back from ownership of the college, and National College of Ireland became our new title as we settled in amongst a very, very fast-growing multinational business sector in the north inner city of Dublin, which has since been joined by Dublin's Silicon Docks. And you will recognise in a moment when I mention many of the companies that are in this area. So fast forwarding to today, you will see that NCI has in excess of 6,000 students in the disciplines of computing, business, psychology and education. And we pride ourselves on delivering highly skilled graduates to today's employers. And we pride ourselves on helping every single student into that job. Our work does not stop with graduation. We work with students to ensure that they can really maximise their potential and aspirations through their career. We know that the jobs market is constantly transitioning, and as progressive educators we need to remain ahead of those changes. We really like to be at the front of talent development, equipping students with both the hard and soft skills to excel. NCI, as I said earlier, aims to produce graduates of distinction with a strong entrepreneurial spirit and an emphasis on invention. That to me is something that I saw on a recent visit to India. A strong entrepreneurial spirit across the society and an emphasis on invention. Our faculty is not just expert in their academic field, but our faculty also bring deep industry experience. And it is that combination that helps our students to bring their learning to bear on real-world challenges. Critical thinking is as important as the latest theory. And our pedagogy encourages true engagement with the content of each module through processes of inquiry, presentation, influence and problem solving. As I often say to our graduates, you have learned how to learn. Hold on to that skill. It is really important if you want to succeed and make a change. And in the current environment, you won't be surprised that the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals are embedded into our programs. We value very, very significantly the diversity of our student body and of our staff. We estimate that more than 50 countries are represented across the NCI population. And we aim to take a whole of student approach to our education so that the well-being of our student is valued as highly as their results in their assessments. We have a fantastic student support system. We have a representative of our student support system. Joanna is with us here today. And that student support system is complemented by smaller student class sizes, which really helps an intimacy and an understanding to be present between student and lecturer, and helps to create a learning community that encourages cognitive flexibility and emotional intelligence, as well as academic excellence. Our objective, as we said, is to help each of our students reach their full potential and their own aspirations. So it is this philosophy and value system that I believe makes NCI attractive to all our international students, and in particular our international students from India, who make up the largest group of international students as National College of Ireland. We are delighted to be building on agreements between Ireland and India, the 2006 India Agreement in Scientific and Technological Cooperation, the Science Foundation Ireland International Strategic Cooperation Award, and we are absolutely delighted that our international students are part of Ireland's third level graduate programme for students from outside the European Economic Area, allowing those who come to study with us to stay and work after their qualification in Ireland for up to 2 years. Our focus on access to education and skills has allowed us to welcome more than 1,100 Indian students to National College of Ireland, and they make an enormous impact on our college and add huge to our diversity and our global understanding across all of our college activities. I had the pleasure with my colleague Robert Ward, our Director of International and Marketing, to visit our team in Delhi and in Mumbai in January of this year, just a few short weeks ago. And it was absolutely fantastic to experience the wonderful country of India. I met with prospective students and I met with those representing students thinking of coming to National College of Ireland. And I was delighted with the support of Educate Ireland and the Irish Trade Board to talk to journalists about the opportunities for students coming to Ireland and particularly to National College of Ireland. But I would have to say that perhaps the most exciting part of my visit was my trip to visit the students of Vibgor, I hope I have pronounced that correctly, High in Mumbai. It was fantastic to sit down with 15, 16, 17-year-olds and listen to their ambitions for their future. Listen to their ambitions for an element of international education. None of them were leaving India for very long, but they wanted that international piece to add to their portfolio of experience. And it was wonderful that this was being talked about in the room. Really exciting day. So I believe that our future cooperation between Ireland and India, notwithstanding our differences, but celebrating our similarities, I believe our future is very well secured. There are many major Irish companies that have a presence in India, including CRH, Ariantha, Global Force, Icon, Kerry Group, Diageo and Glanbia. And many major Indian companies, I'm sure the Ambassador knows this list very, very well, that have a presence here in Ireland. HCL, Jane Irrigation Systems, Vipro, Tata Consultancy Services, Infosys, Armia Pharmaceuticals and Zomato. And the other interesting thing about our two countries is that we also provide major global homes for many multinational companies. Companies that are around our very college in the IFSE in Dublin Silicon Docks. Google, Microsoft, Citibank, PayPal, Airbnb, Twitter, LinkedIn. All very familiar names to people in India and people in Ireland. And I believe that this gives us a huge foundation for the continuance of our shared ambitions around education, and also real opportunity for the continued growth of our economies and genuine friendship between Ireland and India. So I would like to thank Ambassador Mishra and his colleagues for granting me the honour of speaking to you today. I'd like to end with a quote that dates from the 1900s from an Indian poet, Rabindranath Tagore. This is a beautiful quotation, and I believe this message holds true to this day. Don't limit a child to your own learning, for he was born in another time. At National College of Ireland, we continue to respond to the changing needs of education. And we are delighted to be doing this with our many students and friends from India. Thank you, Ambassador.